Okay, today we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing integers. So let's just talk about multiplying and dividing in general. So in the examples below, problem 1 has a dot in between the 6 and the 7. That dot represents multiplication. So 6 times 7 is 42. In example 2, you have these parentheses that are separating the two numbers. Well, anytime you have two numbers smushed by parentheses, that's going to be multiplication. So 4 times 10 is 40. And don't forget that the fraction bar represents division. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now let's talk about another way to view multiplication. Repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. So once again, when you see these parentheses, you multiply. I could say 3 times 5 is 15. Another way that I could view that, I could say 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 also gives me 15. I want you to use that knowledge and try the next one with an integer. Okay, so I'm just taking that negative 5 and I'm going to add it 4 times. So negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5 plus negative 5. You could think of this like money. If you're $5 in debt and you go spend another $5, you're at negative 10. Well, then you go spend another $5, you're at negative 15. You go spend another $5, you have spent now $20 that you are in debt. You can also use a number line. If you start at 0, and you go backwards 5 times, okay, towards the negative side, and then you go another negative 5, and then you go another negative 5, and then you go another negative 5, you end up with a final outcome at negative 20. Now let's talk about the rules for multiplying and dividing integers. So the first thing that you always do is either multiply or divide your numbers that you have. Then we'll focus on the signs. So for example, if you have a positive times a positive, you get a positive, which is similar to the examples that you had above. 6 times 7, that is a positive times a positive, and I got a positive 42. You're used to those. Negative times a negative also gives you a positive. And then finally, a positive times a negative will give you a negative. One thing to help you with these rules is going to be this triangle over here to the right. Once you draw the triangle, you want to separate it horizontally down the middle and then vertically separate that bottom half into 2 more chunks. You want to put a negative sign in each of the bottom pieces and then a positive sign towards the top. Let me show you how to use it in an example. So if I have negative 4 times negative 6, so I come over here to my triangle, and I know 4 times 6 is 24. But I have a negative times a negative, and then the only remaining sign is a positive. So a negative 4 times a negative 6 gives me a positive 24. Looking at the next example, I have negative 12 divided by 3. So 12 divided by 3 I know is 4, but let's figure out the sign. If I have a negative 12 divided by a positive 3, my remaining sign is a negative. So my answer would be negative 4. Pause the video and try the 2 on the right. Okay, so on number 2, 11 times 4 is 44. A positive number times a negative number leaves me with a negative answer. And then on the last one, I know 8 divided by 2 is 4. So let's find out the sign. Positive 8 divided by negative 2. So the remaining sign, I have a negative 4. Okay, so let's now look at some practical problems or word problems. If you need a highlighter to highlight any main keywords that you find, please get one out. The word problem reads, as Kim was walking for 4 minutes, the elevation dropped at the same rate. Altogether, it dropped 8 feet. What is the change in elevation per minute? The first thing you need to figure out is what operation you're doing here. So some key words here, you want to find out how much the elevation changes each minute. Okay, so in this word problem, that means division. And you also need to pay attention to the fact that it drops 8 feet. This is going to make 8 feet negative. So if I drop all together 8 feet, so that's going to be negative 8, divided by my 4 minutes, this should get me a negative 2. If you need to refer to your triangle, draw it over here to the side. Remember, negatives sink to the bottom, positives are up top. If I have a negative 8 and a positive 4, I have a negative answer remaining. So it drops 2 feet per minute. Finally, each month, Steve's bank account statement shows a withdrawal of $40. What is the total withdrawal for the year? Now please pay attention to the fact that it says each month. So if you have a highlighter and you want to highlight that, might be a good idea. Because what you'll need to do is figure out how many months are in a year. And we know that to be 12. So every month, Steve's bank account withdraws or takes out, so that makes this a negative 40. How much is it total for the year? So I am going to multiply my $40 withdrawal times 12. Now when I go to multiply this, I personally like to say 12 times 4, which I know is 48, and then I gotta push my 0 on the end. Let's look at our signs. If I have a negative 40 times a positive 12, when I create my triangle, a negative 40 times a positive 12, so that leaves me with a negative outcome. So at the end of the year, Steve withdraws $480 from his account. If you have any questions, ask your teacher.